The engine died with a sound that made Dr. Nina Reeves want to cry. Not a bang or explosion, just a sad whimper followed by silence. Her research vessel drifted in empty space, far from any trade route she knew about. The emergency power kicked in, giving her lights and air. For maybe 3 days if she was lucky. Nina sent out a distress call on every frequency her ship could manage. She knew the odds were bad. Most species out here ignored calls from ships they didn't recognize. Humans were new to this part of space, and not everyone trusted them yet. She checked her supplies again, trying not to panic. Water for 4 days. Food for 6. Air for 3. The math was simple and terrifying. 2 days passed with nothing but silence. Nina spent the time reviewing her research notes, writing messages to her family that she hoped someone would find eventually. She tried to stay calm, but fear kept creeping in. On the 3rd morning, when she woke up with a headache from the thinning air, she accepted that this was probably the end. Then her sensors beeped. A ship was approaching. Nina's heart jumped with hope, then settled into cautious relief. The vessel was small, clearly a cargo hauler, and it was slowing down. Someone had actually responded. The ship docked with hers, and Nina heard the airlock cycle. She grabbed the wall to steady herself, dizzy from low oxygen. The door opened, and 3 aliens entered. They were Vralik, a species Nina had read about but never met. They looked like large reptiles that walked upright, with tough gray skin and intelligent eyes. The oldest one stepped forward, moving carefully like he wasn't sure what to expect. He spoke through a translator device, his voice coming out rough but understandable. "You are the human who sent the distress call?" "Yes," Nina managed to say. "My engine failed. I'm running out of air." The Vralik nodded slowly. "I am Torin. My crew will help you." The next few hours passed in a blur. The Vralik brought oxygen tanks and connected them to her ship's life support. They shared their food with her, strange but edible. One of them, a younger Vralik, started working on her engine while asking questions about human technology. Nina tried to help but kept getting dizzy. Torin made her sit down and rest. "You are not well. Breathe slowly." As the oxygen levels rose, Nina's head cleared. She watched the Vralik work, surprised by their kindness. From what she had read, this species cared mostly about profit and avoided risks. Stopping to help a stranger could cost them time and money. Yet here they were, fixing her ship and asking nothing in return. "Why did you stop?" Nina asked Torin. "Most ships out here don't respond to distress calls." Torin was quiet for a moment. "My daughter once was stranded far from home. Someone helped her." I remembered that. Nina felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I thought I was going to die out here." "Death should not come from simple bad luck," Torin said. "You were alone and in need. That is enough reason to help." Over the next 2 days, the Vralik got her ship working again. Not perfect, but good enough to reach the nearest station. Nina spent time with them, sharing stories about Earth and humanity. She gave them some of her coffee and chocolate bars, which they had never tasted before. The younger Vralik loved the chocolate so much he asked if humans would trade for more. Nina taught them basic phrases in English. Torin told her about his home station, Outpost Haven, where his family lived. He showed her pictures of his grandson PM, who wanted to explore the galaxy someday. Nina promised to send them information about human trade routes and interesting worlds to visit. When it was time to leave, Nina tried to pay Torin for the repairs and supplies. He refused. "We do not charge for saving lives. That is not our way." Nina understood she needed to give him something, though. Among her personal items, she found her father's old military patch. It was from Earth's Defense Force, a symbol of protection and honor. Her father had worn it during the Unification Wars, back when humanity was learning to work together. "Please take this," Nina said, holding out the patch. In human culture, This represents honor and the duty to protect others. My father gave his life defending his people. I want you to have it. Torin held the patch carefully, studying the design. This is important to you. I cannot take something so valuable. You saved my life when you didn't have to, Nina said. That makes you family in my culture. Family shares what matters most. Torin accepted the patch, clearly moved by the gesture. I will keep it safe. Perhaps our peoples will meet again. I'll make sure of it, Nina promised. Humanity doesn't forget kindness. They parted ways, with Nina limping toward the nearest human outpost and Torin returning to his trade route. Nina sent a detailed report to her superiors about the Vralik who saved her life, noting that they were good people worth knowing. She included the coordinates of Outpost Haven and a note that Torin's kindness represented the best of what species could be when they chose compassion over convenience. Torin returned, home to his station, carrying supplies and the strange human patch. His grandson Piam asked about his trip, and Torin told him about the stranded researcher and how fragile humans seemed. He pinned the patch to his cabin wall, a reminder of the encounter. Neither of them knew how much that meeting would matter. Neither understood that one act of simple decency would change everything. In the vast emptiness of space, Torin had chosen kindness. And that choice would echo far louder than either of them could imagine. 3 weeks later, long-range sensors detected ships approaching Outpost Haven. They were not friendly. The Dralek Syndicate, a group of pirates and raiders, had decided to expand their territory. Torin's peaceful home was about to face its darkest hour, and the small patch on his wall would become more important than any of them could guess. The warning came during the night cycle when most of Outpost Haven was asleep. Sensors picked up a fleet of 20 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of their system. They were not traders or explorers. The ships were armed warships, and they were heading straight for the station. Station Commander Helix called an emergency meeting. The council chamber filled quickly with frightened representatives from the station's various districts. 3,000 Vralik called Outpost Haven home, mostly families who ran shops, repair facilities, and small trading businesses. They had basic security forces for handling disputes and accidents, but nothing that could face a military threat. They are calling themselves the Dralek Syndicate, Helix explained, his voice tight with worry. They control 12 systems now, all conquered in the past year. They demand tribute or complete surrender. How much tribute? Someone asked. Half of everything we produce, forever. And they want control of our docking facilities. Helix pulled up images of other stations that had resisted. The pictures showed destruction and death. If we refuse, they will destroy us. The council chamber filled with frightened voices. Some wanted to pay. Others wanted to run. A few suggested fighting, but everyone knew that was suicide. The Vralik were not warriors. Their culture valued trade and family, not combat. They had no weapons beyond simple security tools, no training for battle. Torin sat quietly in the back, listening to the arguments go in circles. His hands kept touching the human military patch Nina had given him, now pinned to his jacket. He thought about her words, about how the symbol represented protection and honor. He wondered if humans really meant such things, or if it was just pleasant talk. We have 1 week to decide, Helix said finally. I suggest we prepare to evacuate the children at least. If we must surrender, perhaps we can negotiate to save the young ones. The meeting ended with no real decision, just fear and despair. Torin walked home slowly through the station's corridors, seeing families holding each other, shop owners starting to pack their most valuable items. His grandson Piam met him at their quarters. Grandfather, what will happen? The young Vralik asked. Torin had no good answer. He looked at the military patch again, remembering Nina's face when she gave it to him. She had been so certain that it meant something important. Family shares what matters most, she had said. In human culture, this represents the duty to protect others. Sleep did not come easily that night. Torin kept thinking about the human researcher he had saved, about her gratitude and promises. He remembered how she said humanity doesn't forget kindness. But why would they care about a small station of traders they barely knew? It made no sense. Still, the thought would not leave him alone. By the third day, with no solution found, Torin made a decision that felt foolish even as he did it. He accessed the communication logs from Nina's ship, which had included her home station's coordinates. His hands shook as he recorded a message. "This is Captain Torin of Outpost Heaven. I do not know if this message will reach anyone who cares. 3 months ago, I helped a human researcher named Dr. Nina Reeves when her ship failed. She gave me this military patch and said it represented honor and protection. I do not know if those words were true, but I have nowhere else to turn. Our station faces destruction from raiders called the Dralek Syndicate. We are not warriors. We have families, children, and no way to defend ourselves. If the symbols humans wear mean anything, if kindness matters to your people, please help us. I have no right to ask this. I know we are strangers, but I am desperate, and you are my only hope." He sent the message into the void, then sat staring at the screen for an hour. What had he done? Even if the message reached human space, why would they respond? He had saved one person. That was not enough to bring help across the stars. The whole idea was ridiculous. Torin told no one about the message. The next 3 days were agony. The Dralek fleet moved closer, taking positions around the system. Their commander, a brutal warlord named Skrull, sent mocking messages about how easy the conquest would be. The station tried to organize some kind of defense, but it was hopeless. They had cargo haulers and repair ships, not warships. On the 6th day, parents started smuggling children onto hidden cargo vessels, preparing to flee into deep space if the attack came. Torin helped, his heart breaking as he watched families torn apart by fear. Piam refused to leave, staying with his grandfather despite the danger. That night, Torin sat in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. He fingered the military patch, feeling like a fool for sending that message. Of course no one was coming. Why would they? The Dralek deadline was tomorrow. By this time the next day, Outpost Heaven would either be destroyed or enslaved. Grandfather? Piam found him in the darkness. "Do you think anyone heard your message?" Torin looked at his grandson in surprise. "How did you know?" "I saw you recording it." "I didn't tell anyone." Piam sat beside him. "Do you think the humans will come?" "No," Torin said honestly. "I think I was desperate and foolish. We are nothing to them." "But you saved one of them," Piam said. "Does that not matter?" "In business, you help those who can help you back," Torin explained. "We cannot help the humans with anything. Why would they waste resources on us?" Piam had no answer. They sat together in silence, waiting for dawn and whatever it would bring. The sun rose on the 7th day. The Dralek fleet powered up their weapons. Station Commander Helix prepared to broadcast their surrender, hoping it might save some lives. Torin held Piam close, ready for the end. Then every sensor on the station went crazy at once. New contacts were appearing at the system's edge, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Not 1 or 2 ships, but 17 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything the Dralek had. The lead ship was enormous, a dreadnought-class vessel that dwarfed everything else in the system. Its hull bore markings that Torin recognized from Nina's uniform. They were human ships, an entire fleet of them. A transmission came through on all frequencies, the voice calm and professional. "This is Rear Admiral David Walsh of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received word that one of our people was aided at this station. Captain Torin, we got your message. We've come to return the favor. Torin could not speak. His hands gripped the military patch as tears ran down his face. Around him, the station erupted in confused celebration. PM hugged him, laughing and crying at the same time. They had come. The humans had actually come. Across vast distances, through space that held 1,000 other concerns, they had sent a fleet to defend strangers because of one act of kindness. Torin had saved one human researcher, expecting nothing in return, and somehow that had been enough. Everything was about to change. The human fleet moved into position, around Outpost Haven, with a precision that seemed almost like a dance. Each ship knew exactly where to go, creating a defensive sphere that put the station at its protected center. The Dralic fleet, which moments ago had been preparing to attack, suddenly found themselves facing an unknown force. Admiral Walsh requested permission to speak with Captain Torin privately. Station Commander Helix set up a secure channel, looking confused about why the human wanted an old cargo captain instead of him. When Torin's face appeared on the screen, Walsh smiled warmly. "Captain Torin, it's an honor to meet you," the Admiral said. "Dr. Reeves sent a detailed report about how you saved her life when you had no reason to. She made it very clear that you are a person of exceptional character." Torin struggled to find words. "Admiral, I only did what anyone should do. A person was in danger. I had the means to help. This response is too much for such a small act." Walsh's expression became serious. "Captain, in human culture, we have a saying, those who protect our people become our people. You risked your ship, your time, and your safety to save Dr. Reeves. That makes you family. And humans protect their family." "But I am not human," Torin said, still confused. "No, but you acted with honor and compassion. That makes you human where it counts," Walsh replied. "Your message reached us 4 days ago. I had my fleet mobilized within 6 hours. We've been traveling at maximum speed ever since. You sheltered one of ours when she had nowhere else to turn. Now we shelter you." Before Torin could respond, a new voice cut into the transmission. Warlord Skrull, commander of the Dralic Syndicate fleet, appeared on every screen in the system. He looked like a warrior from nightmares, covered in scars and battle trophies. "Human vessels, you have entered Dralic territory without permission," Skrull growled. "The station belongs to us now. Leave immediately or be destroyed along with these pathetic traitors." Admiral Walsh switched channels so his response broadcast to everyone. His voice remained calm, but carried an edge that made even Torin nervous. "Warlord Skrull, Outpost Haven is now under the protection of the Terran Defense Fleet. We strongly suggest you withdraw while you still can." Skrull laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the transmission. "You think we fear you? We have never heard of humans before today. You are nothing. Your 17 ships mean nothing against our might. We will crush you, then we will take that station and make an example of everyone on it. Last chance," Walsh said quietly. "Leave now." One of the Dralic cruisers, perhaps trying to impress Skrull, broke formation and fired its main weapon at the closest human destroyer. The energy beam hit the human ship's shields and scattered harmlessly. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the human fleet responded. What Torin witnessed next changed his entire understanding of warfare. The human ships did not destroy the Dralic cruiser. Instead, they disabled it with surgical precision. 3 ships fired in perfect coordination, their weapons targeting the cruiser's engines, weapons, and communications in rapid succession. Within 30 seconds, the Dralic vessel was drifting helplessly, its crew alive but completely unable to fight. "That was a demonstration," Walsh announced. "We could have destroyed that ship. We chose not to. We do not enjoy killing, but we will absolutely defend our friends. Warlord Skrull, you have 1 hour to begin withdrawing from this system. Any further hostility will be met with overwhelming force." The Dralic fleet hesitated, clearly shaken. They had expected an easy conquest of the station, not resistance from advanced warships they knew nothing about. Skrull tried to save face, making threats and demands, but his fleet slowly began pulling back to a safer distance. After 40 minutes of posturing, they retreated to the outer system, but they did not leave entirely. As the immediate threat faded, the station erupted in celebration. Vralik, who had been preparing for death, now danced in the corridors. Children who had been hidden were brought back to their families. Torin found himself surrounded by people, thanking him for sending the message that brought salvation. Admiral Walsh requested permission to come aboard the station. When he arrived with a small security detail, hundreds of Vralik lined the docking bay to see the humans in person. Walsh was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. Wearing a uniform covered in medals and symbols, he walked directly to Torin and saluted. "Captain Torin, on behalf of humanity and Dr. Nina Reeves, thank you for your kindness. You represent the best of what any species can be." Torin returned the gesture awkwardly, not knowing the proper form. "You came so far. You risked so much. I do not understand why." Walsh gestured to the patch still pinned to Torin's jacket. "You understand more than you think. That patch belonged to Dr. Reeves' father. He died defending his people during Earth's unification wars. It represents a sacred promise that those who act with honor will never stand alone. When Nina gave it to you, she was making you family. And when you sent that message asking for help, you were calling family. We could do nothing less than answer." Over the next few hours, Torin learned more about humanity. Several Vralik were invited aboard the human ships to see their technology and meet their crews. The ships were built like fortresses, designed to keep fighting even when heavily damaged. Every system had backups. Every section could be sealed off independently. A young human marine named Corporal Lisa Ortega showed PM around one of the frigates. "These ships are made for one purpose," she explained. "To protect what matters. We don't build them to conquer or intimidate. We build them so we can keep our promises." "Why do humans care so much about promises?" PM asked. Lisa smiled. "Because on Earth, we learned the hard way what happens when people break them. Before we unified, we fought terrible wars. Millions died because nations couldn't trust each other. When we finally came together, we swore we would never let that happen again. Trust, honor, loyalty became the foundation of our culture. When someone shows us kindness, we remember it forever." Back on the station, Admiral Walsh met with Station Commander Helix and other leaders. "I won't lie to you," Walsh said. "The Dralik will be back. We humiliated them today. Warlord Skrull cannot let that stand. He will call for reinforcements, probably a much larger fleet. I've requested additional ships from human space, but they won't arrive for several days." "Then you will leave," Helix said, resigned. "You have done more than we could ask. You should go before more enemies arrive." Walsh shook his head firmly. "We're not leaving. I brought my fleet here to protect this station, and that's what we'll do. Whether it's 20 enemy ships or 200, we gave our word. Humans keep their word." "But you could die," Helix protested. "All of you." "For us, yes," Walsh agreed simply. "But that's the point of honor. It only means something if you keep it when it's hard. Captain Torin saved one of ours when it would have been easier and safer to fly past. He chose compassion over convenience. Now we choose loyalty over safety. That's what makes us human." The Vralik leaders left the meeting in stunned silence. They had never encountered a species like this, one that would face death for strangers based purely on principle. It went against everything they understood about galactic politics and survival. That night, as Torin stood watch in the observation deck, PM joined him again. "Grandfather, the humans are not leaving." "I know," Torin said quietly. "They will fight for us. They might die for us, yes, PM was quiet for a long time. Because you saved one of them. Torin touched the military patch. I am beginning to understand what this symbol truly means. It is not just about protection. It is about being willing to stand for what is right, even when the cost is terrible. Humans do not measure friendship by profit or safety. They measure it by character and choice. Far across the system, the Dralic fleet regrouped. Skrull sent urgent messages to every syndicate stronghold, calling in debts and alliances. He demanded every available warship. The humans had made him look weak, and he would make them pay. Within 2 days, the largest fleet ever assembled by the Dralic Syndicate began moving toward Outpost Haven. 80 warships against 17. The odds were terrible. But Admiral Walsh did not flinch. He began preparing his defenses, using the system's asteroid field and other terrain to his advantage. The humans would stand, outnumbered and far from home, because they had made a promise to an old cargo captain who had shown kindness to a stranger. Admiral Walsh gathered the station leaders in the command, sent her to show them what his sensors had detected. The tactical display filled with red icons, each representing a Dralic warship. 80 of them, maybe more, all converging on their position. The human fleet showed as 17 blue icons, pitifully outnumbered. They will be here in 3 days, Walsh explained, his voice steady despite the grim numbers. I've requested reinforcements, but the nearest human fleet is 5 days away at best. We'll be facing this alone. Station Commander Helix looked at the display with despair. You should evacuate. Take your ships and leave while you can. This is suicide. We're not leaving, Walsh said firmly. But I strongly suggest you evacuate civilians, especially children. We'll do everything we can to protect the station, but I can't guarantee anything against these odds. Torin spoke up from the back of the room. My people will not abandon our home. If humans are willing to fight for us, we will stand with you. Walsh studied Torin carefully. Captain, I appreciate that, but your cargo haulers and repair ships cannot face warships. You'll be slaughtered. Then we will be slaughtered standing beside friends rather than running like cowards, Torin replied. Other Vralic in the room nodded agreement. Despite their fear, they refused to simply hide while humans died defending them. Walsh recognized the determination in their eyes. All right. If you're staying, then we work together. I'll need your engineers to help set up defensive positions. We'll use the asteroid field as cover and try to level the odds with strategy. The next 3 days became a blur of desperate preparation. Human crews worked alongside Vralic engineers, setting up mines in the asteroid field and building makeshift weapons platforms from salvaged equipment. It was not much, but every advantage mattered when facing 4-to-1 odds. Corporal Ortega and her Marine unit trained some of the Vralic in basic defensive tactics. They could not turn traitors into soldiers in 3 days, but they could teach them how to evacuate wounded and operate emergency systems. PM volunteered immediately, soaking up every lesson. Why are you doing this? PM asked Ortega during a break. Teaching us to fight when you know it probably won't matter. Ortega checked her rifle, not looking up. Because hope matters. Because trying matters. My grandfather fought in the unification wars on Earth. He used to say that the difference between victory and defeat often came down to one person refusing to give up when everything looked hopeless. Maybe we're that one person for you. On the second day, Admiral Walsh took Torin on a tour of his flagship, the Resolute. The ship was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. But what struck Torin most were the personal touches. Crew quarters had pictures of families. The mess hall had paintings done by the crew. The recreation area had books and games. This was not just a warship. It was a home. We spend months at a time on these ships, Walsh explained. They need to be more than machines. The crew needs to remember what they're fighting for. In Walsh's office, Torin saw a wall covered in photographs. Hundreds of faces, some human, some alien. Who are they? Torin asked. People my crews have helped over the years, Walsh said. Rescued miners. Defended colonies. Evacuated refugee stations. Each one is someone who would have died if we hadn't been there. When things get hard, I look at these faces and remember why we do this. And now you add us to that wall, Torin said quietly. If we survive this, yes, Walsh agreed. But even if we don't, even if every human here dies tomorrow, this will still be worth it. Because we stood for something. We kept our word. That matters more than survival. Torin struggled to understand such thinking. In Vralic culture, we believe in practical choices. Staying alive to help others another day makes more sense than dying for principle. Walsh smiled sadly. There's wisdom in that. But humans learn something different. We learn that if you compromise your principles to stay alive, you lose the things that make life worth living. Honor, loyalty, trust, these aren't just nice ideas. They're the foundation of who we are. Without them, we're just animals fighting over resources. On the third day, long-range sensors detected the Dralic Armada. It was even larger than expected. 83 warships, including Skrull's massive flagship. They dropped into the system with an arrogance that made it clear they expected an easy victory. Skrull's broadcast filled every screen. Humans, you had your chance to leave. Now you will learn the price of defying the Dralic Syndicate. We will destroy your ships, enslave this station, and make sure every species in this sector knows what happens to those who resist us. Walsh responded from the bridge of the Resolute, his voice calm. Warlord Skrull, you face the Terran Defense Fleet. We stand in defense of Outpost Haven and its people. If you attack this station, we will stop you. Skrull laughed. With 17 ships? You are either very brave or very stupid. We're neither, Walsh said. We're just keeping a promise. The Dralic fleet advanced in a massive wave, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Walsh had positioned his ships carefully throughout the asteroid field, using the terrain to break up the enemy formation. As the Dralic entered the field, hidden mines exploded. Destroying 3 ships immediately and damaging a dozen more, the human fleet scattered. Each ship moving through the asteroids with practiced precision. The Dralic, with their larger and less maneuverable vessels, struggled to follow. They crashed into asteroids, collided with each other, and fell into every trap Walsh had set. But there were too many of them. For every Dralic ship disabled, 3 more got through. The human fleet fought with desperate efficiency, their weapons finding weak points with surgical accuracy. But the Dralic kept coming, pressing their numerical advantage. 1 human destroyer, the Defiant, took heavy damage protecting a section of the station. Its captain refused to retreat even as systems failed throughout the ship. When the engines died, the Defiant used its last power to fire on 3 Dralic cruisers, saving a Vralic cargo vessel that had foolishly joined the fight. The battle raged for hours. Human ships fought in ways the Dralic had never seen. A frigate with half its hull breached continued fighting, its crew sealing sections and rerouting power with incredible speed. When it finally died, it rammed a Dralic destroyer, taking the enemy with it. Torin watched from the station, feeling helpless. The humans were fighting like demons, but they were being overwhelmed. Then he saw something that changed everything. A group of Vralic engineers had gotten 3 of the old defense platforms operational. The weapons were ancient and weak, but they could still fire. We must help them, Torin said to Station Commander Helix. The humans are dying for us. We cannot just watch. Helix nodded. Gather volunteers. Anyone willing to fight. Within minutes, dozens of Vrolic rushed to the platforms and to their cargo ships. They were not warriors. Their ships were not warships. But they could create confusion, provide cover, and show the humans they were not alone. Torin took command of a cargo hauler, loading it with mining explosives. Other Vralik followed his lead. They flew into the battle, using their knowledge of asteroids and terrain to harass the Dralic fleet. Several cargo ships were destroyed, their crews dying without hesitation. But they were making a difference. Piam operated one of the defense platforms, working alongside Corporal Ortega. When a human frigate nearly collided with an asteroid while evading fire, Piam's platform destroyed the Dralic ship pursuing it. The frigate captain sent a brief message of thanks before diving back into the fight. But the situation was desperate. The human fleet was down to 14 operational ships, many of them badly damaged. The Dralic still had over 50 vessels, and they were pressing their advantage. Warlord Skrull, seeing victory within reach, ordered his flagship forward. He wanted to personally destroy Walsh's vessel and then bombard the station into submission. Admiral Walsh saw the flagship coming. His ship, the Resolute, was heavily damaged but still fighting. He knew what he had to do. Looking at the photographs on his wall, at all the faces of people his fleet had saved, Walsh made his decision. "All hands, this is the Admiral," he broadcast to his ship. "Prepare to evacuate non-essential personnel. We're going to ram the flagship." His officers protested, but Walsh's face was set. "If we take out Skrull, the rest of their fleet will fall apart. This is our chance to end it. I'm not asking you to die with me. Get to the escape pods." As his crew reluctantly began evacuating, Walsh piloted the Resolute directly at Skrull's flagship. The two massive vessels were seconds from collision when new contacts appeared on sensors. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Lots of them. The first voice Walsh heard made him smile. "Admiral, this is Dr. Nina Reeves aboard the Endeavour. Sorry we're late. Permission to join the fight?" 20 fresh human warships appeared in perfect formation, followed by 12 more vessels from other species. Nina had not just brought reinforcements from human space. She had spread the story of what was happening here, and other species had answered the call. The tide of battle shifted in an instant. "Permission granted," Walsh said, unable to keep the emotion from his voice. "Welcome to the party, Doctor." Nina's response came with a laugh. "I heard you were defending the people who saved my life. Did you really think I'd miss this? Besides, I brought friends." The reinforcements hit the Dralic fleet like a hammer. The enemy ships, already battered from hours of fighting, suddenly found themselves facing fresh opponents with full weapons and shields. Skrull screamed orders, trying to rally his forces, but panic was spreading through his ranks. Walsh pulled the Resolute back from its collision course, much to his crew's relief. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship. Let's end this." What followed was a coordinated assault that demonstrated why human military doctrine was so effective. Every ship knew its role. Every captain trusted their fellow officers. They moved as one organism, their weapons' fire timed to overload the flagship shields at precise moments. But Skrull was not finished. His flagship was heavily armored and bristling with weapons. Even damaged, it remained dangerous. As the human fleet pressed the attack, Skrull made a desperate decision. If he could not win, he would make sure these humans paid the ultimate price. He would destroy the station itself, the flagship's main cannon powered up, a weapon designed to crack planets. It rotated toward Outpost Haven, where thousands of Vralik civilians huddled in shelters, praying for survival. The weapon needed 30 seconds to charge. In that time, it became the most important target in the system. Admiral Walsh saw the danger immediately. "All ships, emergency intercept. Stop that cannon at any cost." The human fleet surged forward, but they were too far away. Only one ship was close enough to make a difference. The Resolute, already heavily damaged, was the closest vessel to the flagship. Walsh did not hesitate. He ordered full power to engines and put his ship between the cannon and the station. "Sir, we can't take a hit from that weapon," his tactical officer reported. "Our shields are already failing." "I know," Walsh said calmly. "Evacuate everyone to the aft sections. Seal all forward compartments. And someone get me a direct line to Captain Torin." On the station, Torin received the transmission with growing horror as he realized what Walsh was planning. "Admiral, no. Do not do this. We are not worth your life." "You're worth every life on this ship and more," Walsh replied. "Captain, tell your people what happened here. Tell them that humans came from across the stars because you showed kindness to one of ours. Tell them that honor and compassion matter more than power or profit. Make sure the galaxy knows why we stood here today." The flagship's cannon fired. The beam was brilliant and terrible, capable of destroying cities. It hit the Resolute's forward sections, punching through the weakened shields and tearing into the hull. But the ship held together just long enough. The beam dissipated against the Resolute's mass, never reaching the station. Then three things happened at once. Nina's ship, the Endeavor, fired its main weapon directly into the flagship's cannon assembly while it was still overheated from firing. The cannon exploded internally, tearing through several decks. Two other human cruisers hit the flagship's engines, leaving it drifting and helpless. And on Outpost Haven, every Vralik who could reach a weapon, tool, or makeshift bomb rushed to their ships. The cargo haulers that had been hiding now swarmed the battlefield. They were not warships, but they were piloted by people who had just watched humans sacrifice themselves for strangers. The Vralik flew with reckless courage, targeting damaged Dralek vessels and rescuing human escape pods. PM, still operating a defense platform, coordinated with Corporal Ortega to cover the Vralik vessels as they darted through the battle. When he saw the Resolute breaking apart, escape pods launching from every section, he cried openly while continuing to fire. Ortega put a hand on his shoulder but said nothing. There were no words for what they had just witnessed. The Dralek fleet, seeing their flagship crippled and facing reinforcements they could not match, began to break. Ships fled in every direction. Some surrendered. Others tried to fight and were quickly disabled. Warlord Skrull, his ship dying around him, attempted to detonate his power core and take as many enemies with him as possible. Human boarding teams stopped him with seconds to spare. As the battle ended, an eerie quiet fell over the system. Debris floated everywhere. Damaged ships drifted in the darkness. Emergency beacons marked escape pods waiting for rescue. The victory had come at a terrible cost. Torin took a transport out to where the Resolute had died. The ship had broken into 3 major sections, each one a tomb for those who could not evacuate in time. Rescue teams searched for survivors, finding a few in sealed compartments that had somehow held together. But hundreds were dead, including many who had stayed at their posts to give others time to escape. Admiral Walsh had survived, pulled from the command deck by his security team despite his protests. He was badly injured, but alive. When Torin reached him in the medical bay of another human ship, Walsh tried to sit up. "The station?" Walsh asked immediately. "Safe," Torin said, his voice breaking. "Because of you. Because your people gave everything." Walsh relaxed slightly. "Then it was worth it. Every life we lost mattered because we saved thousands more." "I do not understand your species," Torin said honestly. "You came here for one person's act of kindness. You fought impossible odds. You died for strangers." "Why?" Walsh met his eyes. "Because that's what honor means. It's easy to keep promises when it costs nothing. Real honor is keeping them when the price is terrible. You saved Nina when you didn't have to. That told us everything we needed to know about you. We could do nothing less than stand beside you." Over the following days, the aftermath of the battle consumed everyone. Human ships that could still fly helped repair the station. Vralik engineers worked around the clock to patch damaged hulls and restore systems. Medical teams from multiple species treated the wounded without regard for nationality or politics. Dr. Nina Reeves spent her time between the hospital and the memorials being set up for the fallen. She found Torin at one of these memorials, standing before a wall that listed the names of every human who died defending Outpost Haven. 347 names, each representing someone who chose honor over survival. "I never imagined this," Nina said softly. "When I sent that report about you, I just wanted my superiors to know there were good people out here." "Your people died because I asked for help," Torin replied, guilt heavy in his voice. "No," Nina corrected firmly. "They died because they chose to honor what you represent. You saved my life when you had every reason to pass by. That choice, that moment of compassion, show humanity the best of what we can be when we look beyond profit and convenience. These people died protecting that ideal." Torin touched the military patch still pinned to his jacket, now scarred and burned from the battle. "I am beginning to understand what this symbol truly means. It is not just about protection or honor. It is about the willingness to sacrifice for what is right, even when the cost seems too high." "Yes," Nina said. "And now you carry that responsibility. You must make sure their sacrifice meant something. Build something good here. Show the galaxy that kindness matters, that honor is not just an empty word." PM approached them, accompanied by Corporal Ortega. The young Vralik had grown up quickly during the battle. "Grandfather, the council wants to meet with you. They are discussing the future." The council meeting brought together Vralik leaders, human officers, and representatives from the other species that had joined the fight. Despite their exhaustion and grief, they knew decisions had to be made about what came next. "The Dralik Syndicate is broken," Admiral Walsh reported. "We captured Warlord Skrull and most of his officers. Without leadership, their remaining forces are scattering. They won't threaten anyone for a long time." "And the cost to achieve this?" Station Commander Helix asked quietly. "High," Walsh admitted. "Very high. But necessary. If we hadn't stood here, the Dralik would have continued spreading. Other stations would have fallen. Sometimes the right thing has the highest price." 3 months after the battle, Outpost Haven looked completely different. Human engineers had helped rebuild sections destroyed in the fighting. The station now had proper defenses and a small fleet of patrol ships, donated by various species who heard about what happened. The memorial wall for fallen defenders had become a place of pilgrimage, with visitors from across the sector coming to pay respects. Torin stood in what had been a cargo bay, now converted into a cultural center. Displays showed the history of the battle, but also the story that led to it. Pictures of Nina's rescue. The message Torin sent into the darkness. The arrival of the human fleet. Every detail preserved so future generations would remember. "It is strange," Torin said to Nina, who stood beside him. "I saved one person. That simple act brought all of this." Nina smiled. "That's the thing about kindness. You never know how far it will reach. When you pulled me from that dying ship, you weren't thinking about political alliances or military support. You just did what was right. That purity of action is what moved humanity. We saw in you the best of what any species can be." Admiral Walsh, recovered from his injuries, approached them. He had been given command of the new Terran defense outpost being built nearby. "The memorial dedication is about to start. They want you both there." The 3 of them walked to the main plaza where thousands had gathered. Vralik families, human crews, and representatives from a dozen species filled every available space. A new monument stood at the center, carved from asteroid rock. It showed a human ship shielding the station, with Vralik vessels flying beside it. The inscription reads simply, "Honor kept, lives given, friendship eternal." Station Commander Helix spoke first, his voice carrying through speakers to everyone present. "We Vralik have always believed in practical choices. We traded, we negotiated, we survived by avoiding conflict. Then humans showed us a different way. They showed us that some things matter more than survival. Honor, loyalty, and compassion are not weaknesses. They are the foundations of true civilization. A human captain who had lost her ship in the battle spoke next. 347 of my fellow humans died here. Each one knew the odds. Each one could have retreated. None of them did, because we don't measure success by whether we survive. We measure it by whether we stood for something worth dying for. Captain Torin gave us that reason when he saved Dr. Reeves. He showed us people worth protecting. When it was Torin's turn to speak, he felt the weight of every eye upon him. He touched the military patch, now enshrined in a protective case, but still pinned to his jacket. I am just a cargo captain. I stopped to help someone in need, because my daughter once was helped by a stranger. I asked for help when my home faced destruction, because I had nowhere else to turn. I never imagined that these simple acts would change so much. He paused, looking at the memorial. But I have learned something important. In a galaxy that often values profit over principle, that measures worth in credits and power, humans offer something different. They offer hope. They prove that honor is not just an ancient story, but a living choice we make every day. The humans who died here did not die for territory or resources. They died because someone showed kindness to one of theirs, and they kept the promise that kindness deserved protection. PM stood with the other young Vrylik who had fought in the battle. Many of them wore human military patches now, gifts from the crews they had fought beside. Corporal Ortega, standing with her unit, gave PM a small nod of respect. The young Vrylik had proven himself in battle, saving several human pilots by using his intimate knowledge of the station systems to guide them to safety. After the ceremony, people mingled and shared stories. The mood was bittersweet, celebrating survival while mourning loss. Torin found himself surrounded by human crew members who wanted to thank him personally. Each one had a story about what the battle meant to them, about the friends they lost or the lives they saved. One young ensign showed Torin a picture of his family back on Earth. "My daughter asked why I was gone so long," he said. "I told her I was helping people who needed us. She's proud of me. That's because of you. You gave us a reason to be proud." As evening fell, Torin and Walsh stood together on an observation deck, watching ships come and go from the station. Trade had increased dramatically. Species that had never visited before now came regularly, curious about the place where humans and Vrylik had forged such an unlikely bond. "What happens now?" Torin asked. "The battle is over. The Dralik are scattered. Do humans leave?" Walsh shook his head. "We're building a permanent presence here. Not to conquer or control, but to protect. Outpost Haven has become a symbol in this sector. It represents the idea that honor matters, that kindness is rewarded, that standing together we can face any threat. We need to preserve that. And what of the future?" Torin pressed. "Between our peoples?" "That's up to both of us," Walsh said. "Humanity would like to offer a formal alliance. Trade agreements, mutual defense, cultural exchange. We see in the Vrylik a people who value compassion and community. Those are qualities we respect deeply." Torin considered this. "My people are changing. Young ones like PM see what humanity represents and want to be part of it. We are learning that sometimes the practical choice is not the right choice. That honor and loyalty matter more than safety. You already knew that," Walsh pointed out. "Or you wouldn't have saved Nina, you just forgot for a while." Dr. Reeves joined them, carrying data pads full of reports. "I've been analyzing the diplomatic fallout from the battle. 23 species have requested meetings with human representatives. 15 want to establish trade with Outpost Haven specifically. 8 have asked about military alliances. One action, one battle, and the entire sector's politics are shifting. Is that good or bad? Torin asked. Nina smiled. It's change. Species are realizing they don't have to accept bullies like the Dralok. They see that standing together works. They see that honor and courage matter. Some will join us willingly. Others will oppose us because we threaten their power. But the galaxy is watching, and they saw what happens when someone stands for what's right. PM found them later, excited about news. Grandfather, the council approved it. I'm going to Earth. The Human Military Academy accepted my application. Torin felt pride mixed with worry. You are sure about this? You would leave your home? This will always be my home, PM said. But humans showed me something I want to be part of. They showed me that courage and honor are not just words. I want to learn their ways. I want to become someone who stands for what's right, no matter the cost. Corporal Ortega, who had recommended PM for the academy, smiled. He'll do fine. The kid has the heart of a warrior. He proved that when he stayed at his post during the battle, even when shells were exploding around him. As the days became weeks and then months, Outpost Haven transformed from a simple trading station into a beacon. Species from across the sector came to see the place where humans had fought impossible odds to keep a promise. They came to meet Torin, the cargo captain whose simple kindness had brought fleets. They came to learn about human culture and the strange idea that honor mattered more than survival. The changes went deeper than politics. Vralic culture began to shift, incorporating human ideas about loyalty and sacrifice. Young Vralic volunteered for joint defense forces. Traders started helping stranded ships without expecting payment, inspired by Torin's example. The practical, profit-focused species began to value compassion alongside credits. 1 year after the battle, Torin stood at the memorial wall, running his fingers over the names of the fallen. Admiral Walsh found him there, as he often did. Both of them came here regularly, needing to remember the cost of what they had built. Do you regret it? Walsh asked quietly. Sending that message? All those lives might have been saved if you hadn't. Torin thought carefully before answering. I regret the deaths. I will carry that weight forever. But I do not regret sending the message. You taught me something important, Admiral. You taught me that some things are worth dying for. That honor is not just a word, but a choice we make every day. If those who died here could speak, what would they say? Walsh smiled sadly. They would say they're glad they stood for something. That their lives had meaning. That they kept faith with the ideals humanity holds most dear. And they would tell you to stop blaming yourself. How do you know that? Torin asked. Because I know my people, Walsh said. We volunteered for this. We chose to be here. We saw in your act of kindness proof that the galaxy has good people worth protecting. That's not a burden you placed on us. That's a gift you gave us, the chance to stand for something pure. Nina joined them, carrying flowers to place at the memorial. She had been given a permanent posting as Earth's ambassador to this sector, a role she took seriously. The new generation is growing up with this story, she said. Children on Earth learn about Captain Torin, who saved a stranger. Children here learn about the humans who came from the stars to keep a promise. That's powerful. That's how we build a better galaxy. Far across the stars, in council chambers and fleet headquarters, in trading posts and colony worlds, the story spread. A single act of kindness brought an entire human fleet. It became a saying, a lesson, a warning to those who thought only power mattered. Humanity had shown the galaxy something new, a species that measured success not in conquests or profits, but in promises kept and honor maintained. Torin looked out at the stars, at the human ships patrolling peacefully, at the traders from 100 worlds coming and going. He thought about one moment of choice, one decision to help a stranger, and everything that followed. The galaxy would never be quite the same. Kindness, it turned out, was the most powerful force of all, because it inspired others to be better than they thought possible. "We are not alone anymore," Torrin said softly, echoing words he had spoken before. "We have friends who came from across the stars, because we chose compassion over convenience. Perhaps that is the galaxy's most important lesson. Goodness is never wasted. Honor always matters. And sometimes, one small act of kindness can change everything." Beside him, Admiral Walsh and Dr. Reeves nodded in agreement. Behind them, Outpost Haven bustled with life, a monument to what could be built when people chose to stand for what was right. The memorial wall stood as a reminder of the cost, but also the value, of keeping faith with the best parts of what any species could be. And somewhere out in the darkness, other stations, other people, were learning that they too could choose kindness, that they too had friends they had not yet met, waiting to stand beside them if they only had the courage to reach out.